You see these people and they're just not sharp. They're less qualified, they're less experienced, they're less articulate, just less competent. And they are soaring. They're fucking printing money. They've got clients, they've got offers, they've got businesses, they've got investments, they've got cars, they've got accolades. They get speaking gigs. They're writing books. They're creating courses. They're certifying people in modalities. Meanwhile, you're sitting over here studying and researching and taking notes, fantasizing about becoming successful, and you have never even taken a single step in real life, in the real world, toward what you want. What's the worst that could happen? What is the worst that could happen? And is it worse than dying with all of your intellect and your insights and your expertise and your research and your knowledge just stuffed up here and never having created anything, never having shared any of it with the world? Huh? Think about it. The people who should be the most capable, the smartest, most analytical minds are usually the ones held back the most. Meanwhile, people who seem far less equipped to tackle challenges seem to be able to just keep on pushing through. Why does knowing too much prevent so many from acting? It's like this tragic irony of the human condition where intelligence and self-awareness become barriers instead of tools. The curse of knowing too much puts you into analysis paralysis. So intellectual individuals tend to see a web of possible outcomes, each one connected to a series of risks, different setbacks, and negative consequences. They run these scenarios through their minds. They dissect every angle, hoping to find the right choice. And it's fucking exhausting. If you have an analytical mind, you may run into this problem every time you go to the grocery store. I am constantly hyper fixated and focused on and analyzing the labels of everything. I look at comparing ingredients, but not only that, even if two things have the same ingredients, I look at the order of the ingredients, because if one has an ingredient listed before another, that means that it has more of that ingredient in the contents of the product. I bet that my grocery trips take, well, it depends. I don't buy a lot of packaged stuff, but if I am buying packaged stuff, my trips could take 30% longer than they really need to. It's the conundrum of choice. And this behavior ties into existential thought, because if every choice could lead to failure, suffering, or regret, then not choosing can feel like the only safe choice. But this self-awareness and self-critique can become shackles. And my guess is, if you're watching this, you've experienced it before. Intelligent people are often intensely self-aware, which means that they are painfully tuned into their own flaws, doubts, and insecurities. This awareness leads them to second-guess themselves, second-guess their worth, their abilities, and it just feeds a cycle of self-critique. Less analytical people tend to have a much simpler, more direct self-concept. They know what they want, they take action without tearing themselves apart first. They often have more competence. They wouldn't even know where to begin to deeply analyze themselves in order to discover their own flaws or shortcomings. It's like, for them, it's just not that deep. Not that deep. This is where we often see a self-fulfilling prophecy, where someone anticipates failure. They will unconsciously act in ways that make failure more likely. This fear of making a mistake leads to inaction, which leads to zero results, reinforcing the belief that they can't succeed. So the dumb path is actually quite direct and effective. People who are less analytical tend to be more direct. They're like, fuck it, YOLO. They're focused on what's right in front of them, not the 100 ways that it could go wrong. So there is a power in ignorance as a motivational force. These people take immediate, unfiltered action, and ironically, this often gets them closer to success than overthinking ever could. Their foolishness might actually be a kind of bravery. I know, I don't like to admit it either. I know. But by not anticipating every disaster, they're not weighed down by fear and hesitation. It's kind of like a primal approach. It's very instinctual. They're hunting for the yes without being haunted by the no. There's a burden that I think a lot of intellectuals carry, this burden of responsibility and of letting people down. And they want their work to be exceptional. They want their lives to be meaningful and their choices to be justified. But this pressure, it can make it terrifying to even try. And the longer that you remain in this period of analysis paralysis and trying to make things perfect before you start, you actually fossilize yourself into a frozen state of inaction. And it becomes harder and harder to get out of it because the constraints that you're putting on yourself just become tighter and tighter. They clamp down more and more and more. And you find more and more reasons why you shouldn't start. It just keeps piling down. And it's like you're being wrapped up like a mummy. And eventually you're fucked. How are you going to get out of that? It can feel easier to just never even act rather than risk disappointing other people or not meeting other people's real or perceived expectations. People who are less self-aware are actually usually more focused on their own goals and needs without worrying about how it's going to affect other people or how other people are going to interpret it, without worrying about being a disappointment to someone. And this gives them freedom from judgment, external and internal. Perfectionism is a barrier to action. I've already mentioned this in at least one other video, but smart and capable people fall into this trap all the time. They live there. They envision this ideal result, and anything less feels like a failure. But because perfectionism is an impossible standard, it becomes an excuse to avoid starting. And to be honest, perfectionism, usually it's rooted in fear. They fear this loss of control that comes with releasing something unfinished. And so by not starting at all, they're preserving this illusion of an ideal outcome. Whereas dumb people are often happy with good enough. Good enough. They're not setting out to change the world in one fell swoop. They're willing to make incremental progress, to fail and try again, fail, try again, fail, try again. And that gets them farther than perfectionism ever would. You know, in Zen philosophy, they talk about beginner's mind, which is about approaching tasks with an open and fresh perspective, free of preconceptions. Beginners don't burden themselves with all the what ifs and hypothetical problems. They simply take the first step. So being a beginner, it's actually an advantage because it leaves room for bold and naive courage. The less you think you know, the easier it is to take action because your mind isn't bogged down by past failures and self-doubt. There's this self-limiting trap of needing more knowledge. I fall into this every day, honestly, every day. I'm constantly stuffing my brain with knowledge. I listen to podcasts on 2x speed basically all day long when I'm not interacting with other humans. And highly capable people can get stuck in an endless cycle of preparation. They convince themselves that they need just a little bit more knowledge, one more course, one more book before they're ready. I talked about this in my Start a YouTube channel video. And this is a self-imposed limitation that is grounded in the belief that knowledge is going to protect them from failure. But in reality, it prevents them from doing the one thing that would result in success, which is taking fucking action. Sometimes knowing too much about a subject can close doors rather than open them because it makes you feel like you're not ready. While those with less knowledge tend to be overconfident and bold. I know you see this all the time. It drives me nuts too. I see it, and this is what happens when you allow yourself to fall into this trap. Because once you recognize it and you see it happening, now it's become a choice. And there's no one else to blame. There's the saying, the more you know how much you don't know. The overconfident people rarely grapple with this awareness, which gives them a strange advantage. When you believe that you can do something, even if it's naive of you to believe that, it often will lead you to actually succeeding purely because you tried without hesitation. I have seen this so often in jobs that I've had where I've had coworkers that work their way up the ladder, get promotions, and they are not qualified. I mean, really, really not much going on up here. But they are so confident, like they truly, truly believe in themselves, truly believe that they're capable and qualified and the best candidate. And then you just watch them and there they go. Off they soar. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting over here side-eyeing them, Cool. I mean, we can talk about intellect and intelligence, an analytical, philosophical, contemplative mind. Knowing something intellectually is one thing, but embodying that knowledge by taking action, that's where the real wisdom happens. Your thinking is the only way to make progress. And actually, it reminds me of Alex Hormozy talks about how the average person is at like a 3rd grade reading level. I mean, literally. So we do need to dumb down our thinking. You could be so much more successful because here's the thing. You have this intellectual, analytical mind, right? And you're trying to make everything perfect and come up with some extremely intricate creation to offer the world. The majority of people, it's going to go right over their head anyway. They will not even be able to appreciate what you have to offer because they can't comprehend it. Their consciousness isn't there. Like you need to dial it down so fucking low just for people to even get it, much less appreciate it and value it. And you need other people to get it and appreciate it and value it in order for you to be successful. So you need to dumb it down. Just take steps with imperfect knowledge. And this will often yield better results than waiting until you're fully ready. Which, by the way, I don't know that I've ever seen an example of someone starting something and waiting until they were fully ready. You're never fully ready. Even when you think you are, you begin and then you realize that you weren't. And then you learn along the way. Life does not reward those who know the most. It rewards people who show up again and again, despite their doubts and despite the risks. Think about it. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.